This is the Horse Radio Network.
This is episode 499 of the Dressage Radio Show, official podcast of the United States Dressage Federation on the Horse Radio Network, brought to you by Kentucky Performance Products and TotalSaddleFit.com. Tonight we have a couple of great guests. Kimberly Goodwin-Clark comes on and talks about retraining and rehoming thoroughbred racehorses. And we are joined by our friend Patty Mayer, who comes on to talk about working with happy athletes.
This is Reese Koffler-Stanfield from Wellington, Florida.
And this is Philip Parks from Rockwood, Ontario, and you're listening to the Dressage Radio Show.
Hi, Phil.
Hi, Reese. How are you doing today?
We're doing great. Well, we're going to spill it a little. We're actually recording a week early. So this is actually a pre-recorded show for us. Because Phil, you're doing something kind of cool. Like
We're going on a big trip. Yeah.
You go on the
My
best
wife
trips.
Meredith and I are heading in a couple of days. We're going to Central Africa, which is sort of interesting.
So
I
cool.
guess.
You guys, it's so cool. You guys go on the best trips. Like, we really need to jump on the Phil Mayer trip.
Well,
wagon.
okay. The caveat is that you have to love wildlife, because that's what it's all about. Going to these remote locations and finding just the best animals, basically. And we like going and sort of visiting these places that, for one reason or another, may not exist in 20, 50 years. So this time we're going to Central Africa, and the main reason is that we want to visit the mountain gorillas. We're going to Uganda to do this. You can do this in 3 countries. You can go to Rwanda, you can go to the Democratic Republic of Congo, or you can go to Uganda. This is the only place these mountain gorillas exist. There's not a single one in a zoo. Their numbers are really small. They're really trying to put money towards the gorilla conservation, and this is our way of participating in the conservation of animals that are endangered. So this is the idea. We leave, like I said, we leave in a couple of days. We will be flying into Rwanda, into the capital city of Kigali, and then we'll be picked up by a driver, and we will be headed into the mountains, into the jungle, and we're going to do gorilla trek. So this is
It's so cool.
really exciting. It's sort of an idea about around our 5th wedding anniversary.
Oh my gosh, it's been 5 years.
So we don't do a lot of presents, around that or around Christmas, but we do love to do these crazy excursions. So we're not really go relax vacation types, because there's going to be a lot of hiking involved, a lot of outdoor activity, obviously, and not a lot of lounging around and reading a book.
I'm out.
But,
I'm just kidding.
yeah, it depends what you like, on your vacations. So
No,
we like going to warm places. That's very important. Get out of the cold for a couple of weeks, and we like to, do stuff and be really active. And so there'll be like 5 hours a day of hiking and trekking and whatever, rain, sunshine, whatever it's thrown at us. That's our plan.
Oh, I cannot wait to
That's
see the
where I'll be.
pictures and here. Yeah, that's where you'll be. Exactly. Exactly. It's not like, at the moment I'm not slumming it either. So we're not complaining here.
You're fine. You just look out the window at the palm trees and
yeah, exactly.
drive the 10 minutes to the beach or whatever it is. You're going to be okay.
Yeah, I think I got it. No, but it's fantastic. So we're recording a little bit early in preparation for Phil being gone. So we hope you guys enjoy the show. And so there's no real news because we don't know what it will be. But we're looking forward. Next week actually is the USDF Trainers Conference, the Judges Forum. So we'll have a lot of things to talk about that, which will be really fun. And then it may very well be our 500th show coming up. So that's going to be really fun. We're going to have some plans for that. So we both just looked up and looked at the number and it's pretty cool. So, but I've actually had the real pleasure in the last week or so to meet some great listeners that are here in Wellington. And we really appreciate everyone that listens to the show and keep it up. So we are actually going to have a listener on today, and we're going to start with a commercial from Kentucky Performance Products.
The sun is just peeking above the tree line as you walk into the barn. You grab your horse's halter off the hook and head out to the field. The dew shimmers in the sun as you walk across the damp grass. You call his name and his head comes up as he walks toward you, looking for the apple in your pocket. You take your time grooming, enjoying the peace and quiet in the empty barn. A refreshing breeze greets you as you start down the tree-lined path. Your horse ambles along on a loose rein as you both enjoy a relaxing ride. The feeling you get on an early morning hack is why we do what we do at Kentucky Performance Products. This feeling is brought to you by Microphase. Fill the nutritional gaps in your horse's diet. Microphase Vitamin and Mineral Supplement is a low-calorie way to provide your horse with the vitamins and minerals missing from their diet. The horse that matters to you matters to us.
Well, tonight we are very happy to have Kimberly Goodwin Clark. She's a USDF bronze medalist and owner of Leeton Farm in Maryland, and she has found homes for over 1,000 retired thoroughbreds. Kimberly, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much. It's my honor to be able to participate in your show.
Oh, well, it sounds like you're a listener, so we always love to have listeners on and hear a little bit about your story. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I galloped, owned, and trained racehorses for almost 30 years. And during that time, I always found homes for my horses and friends' horses. And in 2008, I started to do it more formally, and it grew. And I was a good rider at the racetrack, but I really had to develop some skills for retraining the horses. And the go-to place was dressage to give the horse a foundation. And most of the horses that I developed in the early years, we moved them more quickly. And once in a while, horses would hang around, and we would turn it into a jumper or something like that. But later on, we started to see the need to train them more to demonstrate their incredible potential, because they can't really demonstrate it if they don't have the training. And my riding was developing, and there was more interested in that. So we started to keep some horses that demonstrated great potential longer, and tried to get them in front of people that would take them and go on with them. And we did have a horse, Houdini, who made it to the 4-star level. And there's another horse right now that I think he's going to get ready to go advanced. He's already gone intermediate. And of course, you notice there aren't dressage horses, but we finally got one here that basically told me the day he arrived, "Hey, lady, I'm a dressage horse." Mm-hmm. And he is successful at 3rd level and schooling 4th level. And with the help of Linda Zhang, I think he's unlimited. So it's really very exciting to have a horse that a thoroughbred that can represent represent their potential at dressage.
So, Kimberly, can you tell us a little bit about thoroughbred placement resources and your own farm and operation and how it all works?
We're located in Upper Marlboro, Maryland, and we do rely on grants and donations to help the horses. I do retraining of horses that people have had problems with. We do surgeries and rehabilitation where funding will allow. I did a lot of layup and after surgery care when I had a racing operation on the farm. And so the farm was set up originally for that, and it really lends itself well to now. It's very quiet, far from the road. It's a good place to bring horses when they retire from racing and give them a restart. And my brother who is an excavator, was kind enough to build an outdoor dressage arena so that I could ride and train the horses right here.
Fantastic. Yeah. So tell us about like where are you getting the horses from? I mean, do you have contacts within the thoroughbred industry that might call you and say, "Hey, there's a horse that you might be interested in." Can you tell us about that?
Yes, and initially, because I was at the racetrack for the first 4 or 5 years that I had the Thoroughbred Placement Resources, I was still galloping and training horses on a limited basis. And I would be there, and a friend or a friend of a friend would say, "Hey, we have a horse for you. Can you help us?" And if I couldn't take it, I would take pictures and do a video of the horse at the track and reach out to people, email, and find the horse a home that way. And even back then, we checked references and did our best to ensure that it was a good home, a good solid home. And we had a good success rate with our placement. Now I don't get off the farm so much. I have 4 to 6 horses on average to ride every day, and there's lots of paperwork associated with running a nonprofit. So I don't get off, but people call me, and I have really trusted contacts that when they tell me the horse is sound, and they're also competent enough to know if the horse has a problem, because lots of times people aren't hiding the fact that the horse has a problem. They actually aren't sophisticated enough to know it.
It's a problem of ignorance rather than of malice.
Rather than deceit. But I have more than a few people that I have known that I know their training style, I know how they treat horses and what good horsemen they are, and they send me horses. I have 2 horses that came from a farm in Berryville, Virginia this fall that are just lovely horses, and they're in the evaluation stage, because the first thing they do, they come here and we evaluate them, and then they all get the dressage foundation training that every horse should have. And then as the horse develops, I sort of try to figure out what it is they want to do. You know, what is their best purpose going to be, because that's the best chance for a successful future, is to be in what they could be the best at and what they'll be happy at.
Very true. Now, you've also written a book, correct?
Yes, New Track, New Life. And it's to share the education the horse receives at the racetrack and the things that they know, and also hopefully to let people give them insight into the things they don't know, because they have very specialized training at the racetrack and they do have exposure to a lot of things, but they are handled by professionals from beginning until they retire. And most of the time, their first interaction with an amateur or a novice is once they leave the racetrack, and that can cause potential problems.
So give us an example of one thing that the thoroughbred learns that people maybe don't understand so well.
One of the things I've seen, a mistake I've seen people make when they come to the farm, they want to train the horse by itself. And racehorses are used to training with 20 or 30 of their best friends, galloping around the track. And most young horses that are new off the track would be much more comfortable if you were to train them in the presence of other horses. And it just seems like when people get them off the track, they're like, it's a thoroughbred off the track. We're going to ride it alone. And here at my farm, I am alone a lot and I don't ride, but I take care knowing that the horse is probably going to be a little more paranoid until he gets used to the fact that he's the only one training in the arena. And we're talking about days, but I don't react if the horse is a little more nervous, the first few times, because he doesn't really know. But if you can get somebody else to ride their horse while you're riding your horse, it probably would be beneficial.
Oh, that's very interesting. That's a good tip. And do you have any other things that you would help maybe if somebody's working on dressage, and what are some things maybe that carry over really well from race training to dressage training, or things that don't carry over well?
Well, I don't know if it's carryover, but I think a really important thing to know, because I see people have trouble with this, is we do not get off the horses out in the open or in the training area, meaning the racetrack. We ride them back to the barn, into the stall. Somebody takes the bridle, and we dismount in the stall. Consequently, almost without fail, the first few times you dismount your horse outside in the open in front of the barn or in the arena, the horse is going to be nervous. He's going to say, "What are you doing? Why are you getting off now?"
Yeah.
And it's important not to overreact or get upset. And what I usually do is just try to have somebody come out and hold him and pet him in the arena while I dismount. And in 2 days, if we don't have any bad incidents, which you won't if somebody comes out and pets him and tells him it's okay when you dismount, then the horse is like, "Oh, okay, you get off me out here." But unless you fall off on the racetrack, you get off back in the barn in the stall. And I think it's, when I first started doing this work, there were people that had the opinion that racehorses were crazy, and I never felt that way. And I started to ask myself, why would they think that? And that was another reason I wrote the book, because I realized there were things like that where the horse is getting nervous, and you probably wouldn't know why unless somebody told you. Nobody ever dismounts outside. But then once you know it, it's like, oh, okay. And it's the
totally
same
makes
with
sense.
cross time.
Yeah.
We don't
Yeah,
cross time.
makes sense. Yes.
I had countless people in the beginning ask me, when they called to inquire about a horse, how does he cross tie? And I thought that was such an odd question, because I knew they had never cross tied, so it was very easy for me in a matter of a few days to show the horse that this is just a new way to be tied while you're being tacked up. But if you don't know the horse has never cross tied and you put him on cross ties in the middle of a busy barn, he's gonna step back, he's gonna break loose, then he's going to be scared, and then you have a cross tie problem. Knowledge is power.
Yes. You have, like, for so many people, myself included, like, not knowing the protocols in a race training barn or at a racetrack. Yeah, you'd be oblivious to these things. You'd think, oh, the racehorse is going cross ties, or whatever, right?
You wouldn't know.
You would no idea, and then you can sort of really scare a horse, because they're very much used to, any horse is just very much used to what's the regular routine, and make them nervous, and then say thoroughbreds are nervous, or thoroughbreds rear on cross. Just like you said, they get a bad rap, where they're actually really lovely horses. You just have to know what their training they've already received is, and what their regular routine that they've already received is. And yes, they may be high energy, but in my experience, thoroughbreds have been the easiest horses to do a lot of things with, whether it's vet work or, showering or, whatever. Whereas like the warm bloods introduced to the wash stall the first time, or introduced to water the first time, is like, can also get a bad rap for being crazy, but it's just whatever their experience is, and they need to spend a little extra time training, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And introducing, all of them are individuals, so you're introducing things. But on that note, one of the things, the racehorses generally at a young age have had a lot of exposure to travel and pressure, from racing. And that costs a lot of money to do, because I have had horses that have never raced, and going to the first show is, the horse is like, this is the most exciting place I've ever been. And then next time you go out, the horse says, this is the most excited place I've ever been. I've taken thoroughbreds before, and they're standing around looking and saying, well, when's the excitement start?
Yeah, what's the big deal?
This isn't the most
why is no one going fast?
Yeah, this is not that exciting.
What are we doing here? So, but it is, but each one is obviously an individual, no matter what breed you have, and you have to look at, maybe the gaps in his training and try to fill them in. What I will say about the dressage is I was fortunate that when I first started to do this, there was a local trainer here, Elizabeth Madliner, who was a dressage trainer, and she had experience with thoroughbreds, and it made it, once I started to learn the dressage for my riding, to change my riding, because I was an exercise rider. That is what I did. And just the foundation and communicating the new job to the horse was so much easier and more straightforward, because the racehorse, really like any horse, when you put him in this little tiny arena, he's used to a big giant racetrack. His concern is, how do I stay upright? How do I find balance? Because I'm used to going faster to get my balance, and I can't do that in here. And the dressage was just such an effective and smart way to show the horse how to balance himself so that he could build confidence and not be nervous about, being ridden in the small area, and learn how to do a circle and how to do transitions and what to do, do with his weight. And it really, to me, has made all the difference in the world. And lots of the problems I see that people have with thoroughbreds off the track is they're generous, they'll do what you ask, and they sort of skip step 1, 2, and 3, the basic fundamentals, and they're jumping fences and doing all this stuff and upsetting the balance of the horse more, and the horse doesn't have any of the tools to deal with it. So now he's going faster to find balance, and then they're overbidding him to bring him back rather than just developing the correct muscle and giving the horse the correct training to be able to deal with finding his balance.
So maybe you can just sort of continue that thought for us and give us a few an introductory tips to what are the first things that that you're teaching or training a horse, whether thoroughbred or what's your program look like?
The first thing I do is walk them in hand and teach them walk from my voice and halt from my voice, and I teach them to lunge at the walk. I want them to walk around me in a circle and halt when I say halt. And lots of them have been maybe, I don't call it lunge it, but chased around in a circle at some point in their lives, and they want to run out to the end and run. And until they will walk calmly around me and halt, we don't trot. It's just to introduce the horse to a new routine, to make it easy for him to be successful, because he can walk around me in a circle. And, a lot of times I think they can't really, particularly when you ask them to canter in that little tiny arena, they're thinking, I can't gallop in here because we don't really canter at the racetrack. We gallop. Mm-hmm. But I start out with lunging, which I know it's like boring and not exciting, but that's the whole idea. And when the horse is solid, I take him out and he goes to the end of the lunge line, not just on a small circle, and walks and halts. Then we start trot, and it goes pretty quick once you have that foundation. Usually in 2 weeks I can have the horse walk, trot, and canter around me, and it's consistent, and it's by the voice commands. So then we have a training routine. Then I will usually get on them, lunge them, just 5 to 10 minutes, not to get them tired. Getting them tired gets them fit. And then I will start to walk and trot and hack them around the farm with another horse. I have some older horses that were ponies, and that's here's a great training tip. The pony is the pacifier, and if you ride the baby racehorse, doesn't matter what age he is, he's a baby racehorse when you're training him for a new job, with his head on the right side of the horse near the shoulder of the quiet horse, it's like a pacifier, because at the racetrack, if you watch how they're ponied, they will most of the time go in pony mode and just sort of go with the other horse around the farm. It's a big helper. And if you can get the person on the other horse to drop their hand down, it's, like they're ponying them on a lead. You don't have to put a lead on them, but just put their hand down.
Just pretend,
a lot of horses will really relax to that. And so you get your first couple of days, strolling around the farm with the quiet horse, and, they learn from each other, and they're like, okay, I'll be quiet and relax too. It's just an easier transition and an easier way to let the horse see. Some horses have been trained on the farm. Like when I trained horses, when I broke my horses, I always broke them on the farm, and I would bring them home and gallop them around the farm, for breaks from the racetrack. And I knew other trainers. I learned from a trainer, the Merriman family, and they always took their horses home to the farm. So, a lot of horses have been on a farm and even trained on a farm or been turned out and rested there. But you have to you don't know their history, so you sort of have to act like maybe he's never done this before. And if you can get another horse to go with them, it's always a big help. Alone, a lot of horses will be really nervous because they're just, now you're going out to them, the great wilderness, by themselves.
That's true. Yeah, that makes sense. Well, thank you so much for all of your insight. This is fantastic. And people want to find more information about your book, the farm, the charity that you guys host. How do they do that?
Go to goodhorse.org. It's just like it sounds, GOODHORSE.org.
Fantastic. Well,
Sounds
thanks
easy.
so much. Yeah, I love it. And great insight. Thank you so much. And we look forward to having you on again.
All right, thank you. I would love it. This was wonderful.
Well, Phil, for our total saddle fit spot here, we are actually looking for a listener who uses the girths. We'd love you to come on and talk to us and to Justin about your use of the girths and the products. Total Saddle Fit has some fantastic new products that are coming out that Justin's going to come on the show and talk to us about. They have stirrup leathers, and they have a synthetic girth that's in a more jumping type size. So we're really excited, and we'd also really like to hear if you are using the girth and you've had good luck with it. Send us an email, reese@horseradionetwork.com or philip@horseradionetwork.com, and we'd love to hear from you. So we're really looking forward to Justin coming on the program, and he has fantastic products. And if you have,
I'm sure his design girths and all of the other great, the saddle pads and are helping people and helping horses out there. So now we need a little bit of audience participation to talk about it. Or if you have a question for him, he's going to be on our show. We can get it sorted out, and we can have a little bit of a saddle fit powwow, which would be great.
I love it. I love it. And we have a great total saddle fit tip of the week from a dear friend of both of ours, Patty Mayer, and we hope you enjoy it.
This week's dressage training tip is brought to you by Total Saddle Fit, home of the shoulder relief girth at totalsaddlefit.com.
Well, this evening, it's truly my honor to have one of my very good friends, Patty Mayer, on the show. She's an international dressage competitor. She's a judge. She's a certified instructor. And in her spare time, she had an amazing career as an entertainment attorney. Patty, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Lovely to be here.
Well, we have to tell the story real quickly. You and I met, it's been over 20 years now, at Hofgut-Neuhof in Germany, and I was a whippersnapper for sure. And you got me out of some trouble, but we have remained friends. And,
I got you out of some trouble that we are not going to talk about on this program.
No, probably ever. This was before social media, thankfully.
Yeah,
and
very secret trouble. Yeah.
Very secret trouble. But Patty's been one of my mentors for years. So, Patty, we're so happy to have you on the show, and I'm sorry it's taken us this long. But you have a fantastic Total Saddle Fit tip of the week for us. What do you have for us?
So what I'd like to talk about is the development of a dressage horse as a happy athlete, as a cooperative dance partner. Because, when you first asked me to do this, you said, what's kind of a pet peeve of mine? And I thought, it's really that people look at dressage as, okay, this is my normal way of saying it. As we all know, dressage is French for scared to jump, right? So, you've been a hunt seat rider for years, and you've crashed too many fences, and then suddenly you're a dressage rider, or scared to canter sometimes. That's not really what dressage is about to me. To me, dressage is about allowing a horse to express itself through movement. So if you think about those totally annoying people who you remember from high school, at least I remember from high school, who were the ballet dancers who spent their time in high school and college stretching and, like touching their head to their knees, like in the hallways, because as one does. To me, that's actually the sort of creature, the sort of thing you want your horse to really want to do. That the thing that makes a horse beautiful through dressage, or dressage does make a horse beautiful, and the thing that does that is their desire to express themselves, their desire to move their bodies, their desire to do more of it, to play with their bodies. And I think that we lose sight of that sometimes when we get obsessed with whether the shoulder ends on 3 tracks or whether the halt is totally square. That sometimes we lose the joy of developing an athlete and developing a not just happy, but an enthusiastic athlete, an enthusiastic dance partner. So there you go. That's what I want to talk about.
Yeah, I think
Good. I kind of like this topic because I think, what you're talking about is very interesting, but on the other side of the coin of dressage is control. right? We want to create that partnership that we can just think of a movement and the horse is doing it. And I think that part of what you're talking about is our desire to control the horse sometimes overcomes the desire to
concept
be
of
a
letting the
free
horse,
moving. Yeah.
Yeah, a free moving, beautiful athlete.
Yes.
Who
Yes.
is,
And you have to balance these two things in your daily training, I think.
yes, but I'm saying that with a little hesitation, because I think that when we talk about control, when in the training scale or in dressage tests, we talk about submission. I hate the word submission. I just think that it sounds like slavery. And I'm not super fond of the word control, because to me that sounds more like bondage. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, they've taken the word submission out of some of the texts and the tests that we see. So I think, this is a really good discussion.
Yeah, and we are never, and again, going back to dressage essential for scared to jump, we are never going to make horseback riding a totally safe thing, because they're horses and they could, fall down or spook and you happen to come off, or, just silly things happen and they step on your foot. But with that said, what we can do is give our horses and ourselves joy. And I don't think that the square halt, not as much as I love square halts, I don't think that that's what does it. I mean, if you think about developing a horse up through the levels, what's the most fun for your horse? I mean, for some horses, maybe a stretchy circle, right? But for sure, horses love to do flying changes. I mean, they do. It's like bucking, but better, because you get a good pat for it, right?
Yeah, bucking with sugar.
Yes, but
that's right.
But it can be done so badly, because I have an interesting situation here in Florida with a couple of my horses. One horse I'm teaching. I've had this horse since he was a young horse. Both you two know this horse. I've had him since a young horse. He's learning them. It's really not a big deal. It's really sort of just part of the day. And I have another horse who was clearly forced into doing them, and I hope I can fix it, but it's going to take me a year, probably. Yeah. I mean, to really get all the tension out, and he has so much sort of fear and it shouldn't have been done. And the reason it was taught was, the one horse that I have, the young horse, growing, but the one horse, he's being taught when he's ready to be taught. And I don't have with this particular horse, I own him. There's no pressure for me. I don't have a desire necessarily to show him until I really have something to show. So I don't have a lot of pressure. Well, the other horse was taught flying changes due to competition, right? They wanted to go to the next level. This is even a different sport even, but they wanted to go to the next level. So it's this two very different situations where one is not a big deal and one is now a big deal. And it is difficult to fix because he was sort of forced into it before he was ready.
Because it wasn't done from progressive training. It wasn't done from athleticism, and it wasn't done from joy. Right. I mean, my baby horses all know how to do flying changes. Like 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds. When I get on them, I get up into a 2-point. I gallop across the arena. I give them a little kick with the outside leg. They'll change up. Why? Because it's like bucking, but better. And mommy gives you a big pat and tells you you're awesome. And that's so much fun for them. I'm going to tell you that I think Piaffe Passage is so much fun for them. I think extended trots are so much fun. I think probably half pass, if I were a horse, maybe half pass or shoulder, a little boring, whatever. Do those things that involve them using their body in an expressive way, gives them joy. Assuming, and Reese, you're right, assuming that no one has made a big deal out of it, forced it, made it a punishment. I mean, you can punish a child for dancing, and they're not going to like dancing anymore. You can punish a child for skipping or for singing. And what we should be doing with our horses is telling them they are amazing for doing these things, and telling them it's so much fun. And if you tell the horse it's so much fun, whether with sugar, whether with your voice, whether with a scratch on the neck, whether with a pat, although our friend Mr. Schumacher would kill us for that. We should just relax our shoulders.
Yeah, he doesn't really like that.
We should just relax our shoulders, and that's the reward. I'm a big patter and a big sugar person personally.
He just doesn't like patting at certain times, which, of course, when you're like, I'm amazing, and you pat them, he's like, why'd you do that? Oh, because I was so
What to
excited.
do? Yeah.
We don't throw him under the bus.
That's right. But my Grand Prix horse now I got when he didn't have any changes, right? He was 7 years old. He had no changes. And literally I got a change on him when I tried him out because I just got up into a 2-point, had a little hand gallop and gave him a little kick. And he was like, wow, this is awesome. And he has a ton, he has beautiful changes. He has, he's a Grand Prix horse now. And he almost steps too far under and, is too expressive. We need to kind of calm it all down. So, to me, all of those things are so much fun. And Reese, I totally agree with you that it's about development, about the timing of your ask, but it's also about the joy with which you ask.
I think there's a big difference. And we were just talking about that. Competition creates sort of that sort of fast track in a way. I have to get a medal, or I have to go to a horse show, or I have to
do the next level the next year.
Do the next level the next
that's
year.
a big one that I see a lot.
One.
Yeah. Like I did first level, now I want to do second level, and now I want to do third level, and that's not always the best way.
Right, because
I agree, but it's always good to have a challenge, and it's always good to have a goal. And just like you want your horse looking through the bridle for the next thing, you want yourself, your student, looking through the bridle for the next thing.
Only though, Patty, and I know you agree with me on this because we've talked about it. It's only if you're ready. Don't miss the journey for the medal, or don't miss. I have another horse where I literally had to take him out of competition for a year. And the owner, I think at first, was really annoyed with me. She's like, well, but everyone else is going to the show and I want him to go to the show. I'm like, he was national champion. I get it, but he's not ready for the next level.
Mm-hmm.
And a year later, she's like, I am so thankful you didn't have him go to a horse show. And I said that. I said, I know. And that's why you have a professional that you work with to say, hey, he's doing really well, but for the next year, he needs to spend time doing gym work and having fun and getting stronger. So I think that's always the challenge, right? Yes, we want a challenge. We want to be moving forward. You want to do that. But if the joy comes out of it, and I think that I love how you said that, the joy. If the joy of training and the joy of the journey comes out, then you have to be careful and you have to step
for
up.
either the horse or the rider. I mean, I totally agree with that. But I also think you always have, and Reese, you're awesome at this, right? You always need to have your eye on the development of the athlete. So people, you hear people say, I'm a first level rider, or I'm a second level rider, or my horse is second level, that's all it's ever going to be. And that's not dressage in some way, right? It's because we're trying always to, in a happy, joyful, great horsemanship, sound, lots of sugar, lots of that sort of way, create an athlete who is so happy with himself or herself at the end of the day that they're like, this is so cool what I do every day in this arena. Or in my horse all go out on trails too, right? Or what I do out on the trail. And I think that you're right that you have to develop a horse both mentally and physically, and that you have to be super aware of its physical capabilities and its happiness. But I think people get stuck. I think people get imaginatively stuck. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Where it's like, wow, that shoulder in really could be a little better. That leg yield isn't quite parallel. I had too many walk steps into the halt at training level. All of which is super important because I think that we do need mental discipline to do these things and to do them well. But sometimes I think people get kind of stuck in their own brains about it.
Yeah,
and
getting stuck in the dressage box too much and getting, the point I was trying to make early on about that control stuff and about, doing too many halts. And it's just some cross training, and you said about riding dressage on a trail. Some cross training is wonderful for to make your horse more of a rounded athlete and to bring that expression and joy, and not doing 100 halts every day because there's 2 in every test. We talk a lot about the movements in dressage on the show, especially, and trying to explain them and talk about how discipline is so important. But especially if you've bought yourself a really nice young horse that needs to move, and if you bought the horse for, you know, a dressage career, that it's probably a pretty athletic, pretty expressive horse already, and you know, sometimes they buck and sometimes they do crazy things, but that's because
Hang
they
on, give
are
them a pat.
athletic. Yeah,
Right.
because they're already athletic, and you don't want to tamper that down with being too much in the dressage box.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm going to give you 2 stories about that, if it's okay. The first is when I was, you know, before either, and this is literally true, before either of you were born, I was one of Hildegard's working students one summer between my 2 years of grad school and before law school, because I went to school for a long time, went to college for a long time. And I remember we went out on trails on her two stallions, and she would just basically send us out on trails. I'm sure we weren't wearing helmets, you know, slap us on the butt and say, you know, head off. And oh, by the way, if they want to piaffe or passage, they want a passage on the trail, give them a pat. Like, you know, so we'd be out there on 2 stallions, like going, okay. So jigging a little
let
bit,
them do what
that's
they feel like doing.
Yeah, give them a pat. And, you know, and I've never forgotten that her horses were always happy with what they were doing for that. And I try super hard to make sure my horses have big smiles on their face, and it's not because their bits are too high in their mouths. You know, that they are thrilled to see me in the barn because they know that it's going to be a fun day. So I guess my other thing is, we were talking about horses that are kind of born and bred to do this. As Reese is incredibly aware, I tend to buy horses who weren't bred to do this, but who have a ton of fun doing it anyway. And you know, because I'm elderly, I grew up in a time when there weren't warm bloods in the United States, right? We were doing dressage on thoroughbreds and quarter horses and draft crosses and whatever the heck else we could pull out of a field or get off a racetrack. And guess what? They also had fun doing it. And they might not have been the best athletes, but, you know, one of my friends has trained, I think, 4 horses to Grand Prix. And I would tell you my favorite Grand Prix horse of hers was a quarter horse. And it just had a great piaffe passage tour. And yeah, its changes weren't as through and as expressive as a warm blood's would be. But my gosh, he did 15 one-time changes with a little smile on his little face and his little ears up. And so I guess I think going back to the concept of progressive training and creating an athlete, it wasn't just that she had made this, you know, a horse who was bred to be obedient, a good quarter horse, into a very obedient animal, which he clearly was. But she had also given him tools to become a more expressive animal, to become a more expressive, happy athlete. And I just love that. And so, you know, for people who, you know, aren't going out and buying fancy warm bloods, you know, I mean, I have, you know, half Arabian, half Dutch carriage who's, you know, I've trained up to Grand Prix and who is just an awesome Grand Prix horse. And I also have a fancy Dutch warm blood who is too. But interestingly, I'll tell you, it's a little harder for the Dutch warm blood than it is for the half Arabian, who just, I mean, again, he just comes out of the stall every day thinking, could I piaffe about 55 steps on the spot in diagonal pairs for you? So
he's a little engine that could, for sure.
He is. He's an enthusiast, this little Bob. So, I mean, I actually feel pretty strongly that one of the things, you know, that as dressage riders, as horse owners, we are responsible in some way for making these horses more beautiful, both inside and outside. And obviously a dressage horse is just, I mean, you know, again, I buy horses that are, I have a couple of fancy ones, but in general, I buy, you know, horses from like an Amish farmer friend of mine who, you know, and they really become these beautiful, beautiful animals because dressage makes them that. It just does. I mean, my kind of famous horse Exact was, you know, I mean, he was a real normal Dutch horse. He was a Groningen horse, whatever that means. It's an old breed in Holland. So he was an old-fashioned kind of Dutch horse. And as a young horse, he was so ugly, and I rode with Hilda at the time, that Hilda would not let him out of his stall on the showgrounds without a full cooler on him, because she didn't want anyone to see his conformation. And I'm dead serious. Like she had him wrapped up. Like we were not allowed out of the stall unless he was basically wrapped up so no one could see him. But my gosh, by the time he was a Grand Prix horse, he was stunning. He was stunning. And, you know, kind of a weird color because he was, you know, pinto. But absolutely a beautiful, spectacular horse.
Absolutely.
And dressage made him that way.
Yeah.
And
no, it's so true. I mean, I think that's the moral of the story, and it's what we do every day and every weekend. But Patty, we can't thank you enough for coming on and talking to us about just making it fun and joyful for everyone. How could our listeners find you online if they are in California or looking for you?
Well, if they're looking for me, I'm a little bit north of Los Angeles, and my email is, and I'm going to say it and then spell it, bailiwickhouse@gmail.com. My barn's name is Bailiwick House, and it's spelled BAILIWICKHOUSE, Bailiwick House. And you should look up what bailiwick means if you don't know. And sorry, too lawyery of me. And and I'm on Facebook as well. So there you go.
Fantastic. Well, thanks so much, Patty. We can't wait to have you on next time.
Oh, I appreciate the time. Thank you so much for having me. It was fun.
Well, as always, we love our emails and Facebook shout outs. Keep them coming. And again, we are looking for a listener who will come on and tell us a little bit about your experience with the Total Saddle Fit Girth. And as always, you can find our show notes and links to today's guests on our website, dressageradio.com. Like us on Facebook, just search Dressage Radio Show. Follow us on Twitter at Horse Radio. My website is maplecrestfarmky.com, and my email is reese@horseradionetwork.com.
I think the best way to find me is on Facebook, or my email is philip@horseradionetwork.com. I'd like to thank our sponsors for allowing us to put on a great show. And don't forget to check out all the other shows on the Horse Radio Network at horseradionetwork.com.
Everybody, keep your heels down and your shoulders back. And Phil and Mare, have a great vacation, and we'll talk to you guys soon.